What does whole leader development mean to you, and why does it matter in our world today? Whether it's for your business, your team, or for yourself, why does whole leader and person development matter to you? I'm Dr. Rob McKenna, and welcome to the WiLD Conversation, where we make the best thinking in psychology, leadership, and organizational science accessible to leaders who are willing to learn and edit for their sake and for the sake of others. And today we have a treat. Today we have a big treat. We have a panel, or should I say a fishbowl, and I'll explain more of that in just a moment, because it's going to be a little different than other panels you've experienced. And just to introduce our panelists, we have Wiley Cortez from Prycore Industries and also from Make Moves Not Statements. We have Kevin Pulowski from Farmers Equipment, Inc., Kathy Tout from At Your Service Plumbing, and the Honorable Ethan Britzy from Britzy Financial. He's cracking up that I called him the Honorable Ethan Britzy. These are four leaders, like so many of us, who are on their own wild journey, and not only have made a long-term investment in developing the people and leaders around them, but these are leaders who live it, who are also editing themselves in real time. And they have provided the WiLD Toolkit to the leaders in their organization, so you have a little bit of context. And I will say this also, it's kind of a crazy thing where you can't divide your work from your life sometimes, because they are all dear friends of mine personally. And so it's been such an incredible blessing to have them in my life. And here's what they were asked to do. They were asked to read an article that Daniel talked about that we published called "There Are No Shortcuts to Lasting Change." And here are the two questions I sent them, so you have some idea of how we stirred this up. One was, what is inspiring or encouraging to you about this article? Where does it get you thinking more deeply or affirm something you have already felt? And the second question is, what have you learned from your commitment to invest in your people and your leaders? This would be both your lessons regarding your own development using the tools, or your own process of whole leader development, and other general lessons you've learned. And I just want to read you one. So some of you haven't read the article. Here's a little framing, a quote from the article. If whole leaders are developed, how long does that development process take? It takes 2 to 3 years to develop a whole leader, or at least to get them ready. Let that sink in. It takes 2 to 3 years to get a leader ready for that next move that will be important in your organization. Whether it's a person in the trades moving into a leadership role for the first time, a software engineer doing the same, or an executive whose direct reports are not responsible for leading leaders themselves, it takes 2 to 3 years to get them ready. And what this means is that leader development in your organization is an ongoing process. Whole leader development will only end the day that your organization ends. Until then, whole leader development will be the most important job you have, and it must start with you. So we're going to do, that's a quote from the article just to get us all kind of framing up and stir the pot a little bit. We're going to do a fishbowl, as I said. I don't know if you've seen this or know this, but every dentist gets a fish tank when they graduate from dentistry school. It's just a reality. And so what we're going to do is, in just a moment, we're going to set these fish free in the bowl. We're not going to be a traditional panel. I'm actually going to step out. And I did send each of them these two questions, as I mentioned. I will say that I'm like the 5-year-old who will put his hand back into the fish tank at some point and swirl it around and annoy the fish. And I'm going to put one of you on the spot to kick it off, just to get it going for the first time. And I will say this, they don't all know each other. So they have actually just met. And so Kevin Pulowski, you are going to stir the pot. And I'm just asking that first question. What is inspiring or encouraging to you about this article? Where does it get you thinking more deeply or affirm something that you have already felt? So the four of you, I'm out. Have a great conversation.
I'm currently leading an organization of 70 people. It's a farm equipment business in Northwestern Washington. And I am using the WiLD Toolkit to help lead our emerging team of leaders on a WiLD journey to prepare them for succeeding me in leadership in the company. And I guess the one thing that a couple things that that I've really had to be disabused of is that this is entering into the toolkit has just not been studying curriculum, and it hasn't just been about reading articles, and it hasn't just been about getting through a program. I realized, the 8 people on our emerging leaders team have never had anybody try to invest in them in their growth and development as leaders, not to mention human beings. And so our first year through the toolkit, they were entering into, they were just learning this language that they'd never heard before. In fact, they weren't even learning it; they were just hearing it for the first time. And now that we're getting into it for the second year of the journey, now that they've heard the language, I can see that they're starting to understand it. And yet they're not to the point where they actually own it and are able to speak it yet. So I guess it just drove into me that this is not a one and done deal. It is not a short term process, and I've really had to lean into the whole patience thing, because I've got a timeline for succession here. We've got to get this done. We've got to get leaders prepared. We've got to get them set and ready to go. And we need to do it now, because I want to be out of here in 18 months. And that just is not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's an exciting thing, because this toolkit, for me, I don't have to go find something else. It's an ongoing process, right? Yeah. We're just in our first year, and I see the change and development in some of my up and coming leaders. But one sentence that they put in this article, and Rob said it, so it's got to be true: developing whole and intentional leaders is achievable. I think he went on to say more, but I'm putting a period there. It's achievable. And that's encouraging to me, right? Because I went seeking some leadership training outside of myself, or whatever I felt like I could bring to my team. Mm-hmm. And I'm so blessed to have come across this group of people, because it's exactly what we needed.
Yeah. It's a journey. It's not a program. It's more of a journey than anything else that you take with other people.
Yeah. So for me, also in to piggyback up off of Kathy, it's a great thing. However, one of the, like you guys, probably very goal orientated. So, I want to do something, start, and where does it finish, or where do you finish? And for me, Rob and I were having coffee one day. I was like, hey man, how long is this going to take? Like, when does this end? Like, I want a finish line, not only for me in our individual coaching, but for the team as well, to give them some kind of vision, right, of what it's going to be. He said, there isn't one. It's an ongoing process. Yeah. So for somebody like myself that's thinking, I'm goal orientated, so what's the goal? The goal is to continue to do this and continue to bring the leaders up that are willing to edit themselves, change themselves for the better, for the company, for themselves. So that was eye-opening for me. And I can't say that in that moment I really liked that answer. Because like you, Kevin, I wanted things done. Let's go. Come on. I need these people to be developed to the point where we can now operate. However, yeah.
How much does your own personal
piggyback on that.
Into that? How much, Wiley? How much does your own personal development enter into that? I mean, we're talking about trying to develop the people around us. I'm thinking about there's change that has to take place in us at the same time.
Right. Yeah, and it did. So there was one year where I went into full development on my own prior to even introducing this to my organization or team. And on different levels, and for the sake of time, ended up working with Rob and Daniel and the whole WiLD organization, and just saw a change not only in me, but then I started spilling some of this stuff over into our meetings, and slowly. And I reached out to Rob after I read that article, because we're in year 3 of ours, and it literally felt like he was describing prior core technologies year by year, from the resistance, from the who you're going to see as a leader who you may not thought was a leader, or they didn't think themselves as a leader, to what's happening in year 2 and what's happening in year 3. So it was initially me that took it on myself, because I felt like in the moment, and not understanding, but I felt in the moment that there was a greater purpose on me than just to be it's a sewer excavation company, than just to do sewers. There's 45 to 50 people in our organization. If there's an impact that I could have, not only on myself, but with them, would be massive.
Yeah.
And there's a longer story behind that, but the byproduct of that is the whole culture improved, the organization's bottom line improved, the revenue improved, morale, everything. There was an improvement all the way around. And I don't want to paint a picture of like perfection, but it's a long ways away from what it was by introducing this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's your experience?
I'll jump on that. So, Rob, I want to thank you for putting that it takes 2 to 3 years to develop a leader in your manual there, because I don't, now that we know that it's actually a whole lifetime, the 2 to 3 years is like a bait and switch thing. So thanks for that, because that's what I was expecting.
Yeah,
right?
Rob, thanks.
The biggest killer of relationships is unmet expectations, bro. So I'm just saying. Anyway, it was now you know why he calls me the honorable. Okay, so just get this out of the way. So one of the things that really resonated with me, and I'm sure the other three can align with this, is that I went into it with the mentality of, I know I need to build leaders, but how? Right. I mean, I know that for myself, I've spent years of passionately pursuing growth, and yet I want people to achieve to the best level that they can, and I can't get them there. Right. So I want to be the leader they want to follow, but I'm not the trainer necessarily that's going to be able to provide this platform for them to jump off of. And so I'm in the mortgage business. And if anybody's been watching the news for the last 12 to 14 months, we've had a little shift, right? So we started working with Rob and Daniel and Claire, and then all of a sudden interest rates, double in 3 months, right? And now we're into a different position. And I've got a bunch of millennials that work for me. And now I don't have a lot of those millennials anymore, because really what ended up happening was I was focusing, just like you say, you focus on the people who are going to pursue the intentional leadership development, and then other people fall off. I don't want the anxious few running, the inmates running the asylum, right? It needs to be a focus on who wants to grow. And so I mean, there's so much about training and courses on, how do we do better at our work, as opposed to how do you do better as a human being and then improve everything, right? So you start with your homeostasis and your core level of improvement, and then all of a sudden everything else shows up. So there was so much in that. As we're going into the second year, I have to resist the temptation to let my people who don't necessarily buy in as much, to let them off the hook. And I have to it's now time to double down, to go deeper, and to maintain focus on what's that communication, what's that language, a common language, not just. Somebody mentioned in the chat, it's not just the language, it's the culture now, right? So when you go to a new country, what's the culture there, and how do you absorb it?
Ethan, and maybe for all of you, how did you overcome the resistance or the inmates running the asylum? Because that was something that was real in our organization and still to this moment. So what are some things that you might have done to overcome that?
Well, Wiley, one of the things that helped our small team, you guys have larger teams, there's just 12 of us around the table, is we've been reading books together for a while, right? Because I've been on a journey of developing myself for the last decade. And so I'm not keeping it to myself. I want to share it with them. So they're used to me bringing stuff to the table and discussing it. And the other thing I did that was helpful, because we're a small enough group, the first 2 days, I took 2 of my team members with me. And then I put 2 more through it in May. So this year ago, February, and then in May. And so they got very excited about it. And actually they are the leaders in that small group, and they are the ones that are leading these sessions. You know, we had Rob and Daniel do the first 3 of them, I think, but then they're doing them.
Yeah, that's
For
great.
the most part. And I have young people, right? I think maturity plays a pace. I have a gentleman that's 19, first job out of high school, but I just have to be patient, right? And I will tell you that I have another one, he's 21, and we had a team meeting. I had a meeting with him individually after one of our WiLD leader sessions. And he goes, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like talking about these deep things, right? Surface level, it's okay. And I said, okay, I can accept that. However, I'm going to continue to challenge you because I know what it brings. I know what self-awareness brings. From my own experience and watching other team members do it. So I think we have to be committed to the process for sure. And then when they see that we're committed, they're going to either come along or they're going to self-select out. Self-select out all the way, right?
Yeah.
Because we are a culture. Our culture is about learning and growing.
Gotcha.
So I think it's a culture thing.
Yeah, Kathy, I'll second that. So Wiley, one of the things that I did was I went to each one of them individually and said, this is who I am. This is what I do. And if I'm the leader that you want to follow, this is what you're going to sign in with me to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is an all in moment. I'm not here to lead people who don't want to go, and I want to be your best option as long as I am. And I want you to be my best option as long as you are. But when you show me you're a mercenary, I don't want mercenaries. I want patriots, man. Like, be with me, right?
Come on, man.
Fight with me, not fight with me, right? If I have to tow you over the finish line, I don't have time for that. And I don't have the energy for it. I mean, I got 3 small kids. It's hard enough to battle with them. I don't need them at the office too. Like, let's grow and go, right? I mean, we have stuff to do. And if you can't catch the vision, then that's my fault, right? I got to provide the vision more. But if you're not going to come with me on this journey of growth, I believe that we are created with a desire to be better and grow and explode as human beings. And I want those people with me who align with that viewpoint. If they don't, that's okay. I'm not mad at you. There's just 1,000 other mortgage companies you can go work for tomorrow, right? Like, just be free.
Yeah.
Amen, Ethan. Preach it.
Yeah,
but you have to walk alongside them too, right? Sorry, Kevin. You did, but Ethan, you're walking alongside them. You're doing the tools. You're part of the breakouts. You're in the conversations. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Wiley, to answer your question for getting my team on board, it was I've got a group of folks that never would have dreamed that anybody would invest in their development. My company's 87 years old. I'm 3rd generation trying to transition to 4th. It's always been about performance. It's been a performance-based culture. Show up, work hard, sell more. Yeah. And to be able to pivot that around and if, to actually start to walk the talk and say, we need to be more committed to developing our people. And a commitment to developing you. And so here's what we've got in mind. What would you mind? What do you think about climbing on board? And let's take this journey together. And what's been the most important piece of that is I've had to lean into it myself. I think if the senior leadership, if the guy in charge up top who's trying to make all this all this change happen isn't plugged into this and asking and making even more of an investment than he's asking the other folks on the team to make, it ain't going to go anywhere. And so I would say that the personal transformation in me this last 2 years has been palpable. And so it's been palpable to my team too. They see it. So
all right, I'm jumping back in. I'm that 5-year-old now. I'm sorry. I could just let this go and go and go, but you all have stirred the pot in powerful ways, or the fish tank as it were. So what I want to do is give each of you, what is your, now you're on the spot. So you talk to each other. What is your 30-second piece of advice for leaders who want to invest in whole leader development? What is your 30-second piece of advice? If each of you could just say that, then we're going to launch out.
Start now. Don't wait. There's no better time to do it than now. And if you don't have a system, this is a system that works. If you do have a system, double down on it, show up.
Serve others. Serve others. Serve others. Invest in the people around you and earnestly desire and let them know that you desire their full flourishing.
Wow, that's good.
Change is hard and it takes time, an investment of time, and time is our one non-renewable resource. And so it's precious. And so if you care enough for others in service, as Kevin says, take the time to do it. And my last thing is, I think we don't stick with things long enough to realize the value. So I'm excited about this process, giving me space to have it go on so I can realize the value over time.
Wow, that's good. I have to follow that up. I would say that for our organizations, there was a resistance that had us second guessing the WiLD toolkit.
Mm-hmm.
We overcame that. As I mentioned, we're in year 3, and there is a significant difference in the people and the business because of it. So it's worth the investment. And it's worth the investment if the leaders in that organization are walking alongside. I think either Ethan or Kathy said that, walking alongside, developing themselves, because then they become transparent and vulnerable in those moments with their team, which allows them to see that, yeah, I'm your leader, but I'm human just like you. I have challenges I need to overcome. I need to develop. So that's played a huge role in our organization and with people around us, not just within the company, because I think Rob alluded to it. You're not somebody different when you go to work and you come home, or you're in a community or wherever you're at. You're the same person. And if you're developed and whole, you understand that and you move in that. So there's just a lot with whole intentional leadership development. Yeah.
Ethan, Kathy, Kevin, and Wiley, thank you.